history is doomed to repeat itself. The quicker we learn that, the quicker we can understand how this is going to end. I think it's one of the biggest paradoxes of our time. Western feminists are seen to be defending the very same regime that is murdering women for dancing, executing gay people. It goes very deep, like even within our Western institutions. They say things like, this is what white girls are for. Their turn to take over, and it's the Muslim turn to take over. Some of them outright say, we are here to enforce Sharia. Back in the 60s, Iran was definitely a much better place to be a woman. I'm sure you've seen pictures of them at university campuses, in miniskirts, hair showing, at the beach. It looked like a picture of the West.
And what happens?
And then the revolution happened. Red-Green Alliance, the Islamists came into power. Within 2 years, there were thousands and thousands of executions. These woke or gay activists holding up signs for Free Palestine that, you are going to end up with the same fate.
Do you think that might happen in the UK?
He found a lawyer that put this really, really ancient Sharia law on me about the disobedience of a wife. So I got out at the last minute by the skin of my teeth by calling the British emergency number. The gentleman on the phone just said, get out of there, do not give them your passport. I just legged it to the airport, packed a quick bag, legged it, and never looked back.
Can I ask you a favour? Heretics subscribers are through the roof, but only 43% of you watching are actually subscribed, which is mad. If you enjoy thought-provoking conversations and want to help this channel grow, hit that subscribe button. It's free and makes a huge difference. I want to go straight into it. I want to know a little bit about why you think progressives in the West, or just woke people, because I don't like that. Progressive annoys me because it suggests they're sort of better than people, why they are so quick to jump to the defense of Iran with what Iran actually is.
Yeah, I know it sounds like they're progressive and we're all regressive if we're not on the same kind of wavelength as them. But no, I think it's one of the kind of biggest paradoxes of our time, if you will. Like, it's identity politics gone mad, in my opinion. So I was actually speaking to a Iranian German author on my channel about this as well. And, it's kind of come down to the fact that post-World War II, especially Germany, but in general the West, kind of fell into this moral coma. And they were just acknowledging the fact that the West is inherently oppressive and, they're evil. And so we are now going to, I think she called it neo-universalism. Like, we are going to consider everybody morally innocent, especially Muslims. Like, they got that kind of treatment going forward. And so couple that with anything anti-Western and anti-American hegemony or imperialistic, and you've got something like the Iranian regime getting kind of a free pass to do what they want. And Western progressives, especially even Western feminists, are seen to be defending the very same regime that is, against free speech, murdering women for dancing, executing gay people. And you just think, how have we got to this absurd point? But I think you also see it play out in like university campuses in the West here, where you've got student unions coming out and protesting in favor of Hamas and the Iranian regime. And it's kind of the same thing as that, okay, well, if they're anti-West, then they are morally protected for some reason. And so, yeah, it's a very strange era where you're having to stand up and speak for rights that you'd think they would, by default be against. And
I think that's interesting about the Second World War, post-Second World War. I hadn't actually thought of that. So it's sort of the West is this kind of axis of evil, and then so anything outside of it is morally pure. I suppose with Palestine or Gaza, it's still ridiculous, but okay, I get they think Israel is sort of boxing them into this, and they're reacting because of Israel and so on, but they can't really say that about Iran, and that's why it's so bizarre to me, even more than with the gays for Gaza or whatever, the Iran stuff and the pictures of the Ayatollah. Have you seen that? Like people walking around London with that?
Yeah, I know. And again, it's just like, are you that anti-Western that you would vocalize theocratic rights for a theocratic brutalist regime like Iran just because of that? So your morality is suspended in that sense. And obviously there's parallels with the reasons that they do support Hamas as well. And it goes very deep, like even within our Western institutions. For example, I think it was King's College, University of London, or one of the other universities, in their politics textbooks, the very like line that was there to refer to Hamas was one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Right.
And I was shook that this is what you're teaching students. Like, what kind of morality are you instilling into the next generation?
Man, we're in trouble. And Iran's apparently, a lot of people are saying there was this sort of, we've attacked Iran out of nowhere, but I believe they were using Hamas and Hezbollah, especially as a sort of the proxy for their, so I mean, you could argue that Iran really started this, but what is Iran? It's sort of different ethnicities and things, isn't it? What's a simplistic overview of what Iran is?
Yeah, so and to my understanding, it's kind of like a mosaic of various ethnicities as well within Iran. So you've got the Persians, you've got the Kurds, you've got the Azeris, you've got the Arabs, you've got the Baluchis. And so this facade of the Islamic regime kind of, uniting them all is very thin, because behind it you'll see the cracks like severely there, and these minorities are kind of suffocated under the current regime, as you would expect under an Islamic theocracy. But any non-Persian language is not encouraged, and for example, the Kurds, they are disproportionately executed. And you have this thing where their areas now, because obviously they make up various regions. They've been begging for a homeland since World War II, an autonomous region for the Kurds. But because the regime leaves them so impoverished, they're called Kolbaris, I think it is, or Kolbaris in Persian, where they are taking goods like tea and coffee across from Iranian-controlled where the Kurds are to the Iraqi side of the border, and the regime literally just shoots them down point blank. And similarly, the Balochis are kept severely impoverished, and they're some of the poorest. So you've got insane ethnic tension even behind this facade of the Islamic regime uniting all of Iran.
That's really interesting. And I think like the Kurds, as I remember, that was in Iraq. Is that neighboring?
Yeah.
As you said, they were carrying things across the border. In Iraq, this is something I remember Hitchens wrote about, that there was this feeling of, right now everybody was very against the Iraq war. And I think that's the consensus, isn't it? But he was saying one thing people forget is that Saddam was just killing the Kurds. Like, it was a genocide on Kurdish people, like ridiculous, burying like pits full of bodies.
Yeah.
And he had to be stopped. So regardless of whether weapons of mass destruction weren't there or who knows what, Iraq and Saddam Hussein had to be stopped for that reason. And now it appears that the same sort of thing is happening, or maybe not to that extent, but in Iran. Are different ethnicities in Iran, are they Muslim as well? Are they forced to be Muslim?
So they're forced to kind of, go along with what the Ayatollah deems as the, Shia theocratic state, but they are not Muslim by default. Like, they've got, some of them are a blend of, like, let's say animism and Islam. Some are more kind of Zoroastrian mixed with animism, mixed with bits of Islam. The Kurds have their own religion as well. Some of them have been Islamicized heavily. So again, that if they're seen to be practicing their like ethnic religion, they are punished, and it's obviously suppressed. The same way you see in many current Islamic countries, that the ethnicities within them are not allowed to just be themselves.
Is it true that back in the day, I think, the 50s or 60s, Iran really was this kind of liberal, women could show their hair, people were dancing and those kinds of things?
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, the Shah wasn't perfect, but back in the 60s, Iran was definitely a much better place to be a woman. So they were given the right to vote, they were unrestricted, they were empowered. I'm sure you've seen pictures of them at university campuses, in miniskirts, hair showing, at the beach. Do you know what I mean? Like, it looked like a picture of the West.
And then what happens?
And then the revolution happened, and it was kind of game over for that kind of freedom. So yeah, it was the classic example of the Red-Green Alliance, essentially, where they tried to topple the Shah, and they managed to topple the Shah. But as a result, the Islamists came into power, which is not what the left were expecting.
We all have little habits. Clicking a pen, biting your nails, chewing gum without thinking. I found something better. It's called Fume, and they're sponsoring this video. It's not a vape, not some flashy gimmick, just a clever, well-designed tool for people like me who always need something in their hands or mouth, but want to avoid the harmful stuff. There's no smoke, no vapor, and no nicotine, just clean, natural flavors. The build is solid, with a satisfying weight and tactile feel. It's magnetic, it clicks, it spins, and yeah, it even sounds great on the mic. My favorite crisp mint, which I can't find here. I've got them all because I've been using it before, but these are all the look at these fun flavors and things. You just pop it in here and just... If you're curious, over 500,000 people already use Fume as part of their daily routine. Grab the journey pack at tryfume.com/heretics, use code heretics, and they'll throw in a free topper to level up the experience. Scan the QR code on screen and check it out. What did they think would happen then? I thought they were like propping up the Islamists, like, go on, we will obey you.
They were propping up the Islamists for sure, but thinking we can prop them up and then use them. But it turned out that no, they were the ones being the useful idiots for the Islamists. So it was kind of like a case of they were feeding the crocodile, hoping it would eat them last. But they got devoured in the process because within 2 years, there were thousands and thousands of executions that took place. Wow. And I guess it should be like a stark warning to any of these kind of, I mean, here in the West, what's playing out now, to like these woke or gay activists who are, holding up signs for free Palestine, that, you are going to end up with the same fate if they were to ever get into power or have you under their control, because the Islamists are not your friends.
Do you think that might happen in the UK?
I sincerely hope not, but we're heading towards kind of, very dangerous kind of situations lately. I think our institutions, a lot of them have been captured. And I think that rot runs very, very deep, and we're going to have to start something very drastic very soon to kind of change the entire collective mindset of society. I mean, you've seen the kind of demonstrations that take over London on the weekends. It's intimidating. If I was a Jewish person living in London, I would be extremely afraid to kind of be out there in the midst of that. And it runs through the NHS, it runs through schools, it runs through universities. And yeah, even beyond that, I'm sure we'll get into it.
We have family members in Argentina who got my wife and I what's called a mezuzah. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's like, you'll have seen it if you're on like Jewish households on next to the door. I probably shouldn't say this because it's sort of giving it away to people who want to, but I think the people who listen to this podcast, are not going to start attacking Jews. But it's like a marker of a Jewish house. It's a little, almost like a bar. That's a small bar that's in italics almost. It's like diagonal.
Yeah.
And it's small and it's next to the door. And the thing is, I wouldn't have that anyway because I'm not religious. I don't believe in any of that stuff. But it was a nice gift and it was like this expensive thing or whatever. And we had to explain, like, there's in the UK right now, there's absolutely it would be the stupidest thing. And most families I know, they still do have them. But my wife and I, we're not putting that on our door. Like, no way.
No, that's asking for trouble. Please don't do that.
No, yeah, and how's and that is, I think when we do talk to whenever I've had a chance to talk to maybe a leftist, which is almost never because they won't come on, but like a centrist who's like, oh, I'm not sure, maybe a bit of I always say that to them. I say, if you were Jewish, would you put that on your door? And if the answer is no, then there's something wrong with your whole system right now, because that can't be a modern Western democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's this pandering, this nonstop pandering, and we've got to this position where, like you're saying, we would not encourage even a Jewish friend that you had to do that for obvious reasons. Yeah. And that's where Islam wins.
Man, it's really scary. Would you say that, is it that similar to what happened in Iran and I think Lebanon and several other countries, like in terms of that red-green alliance you speak of, that's just happening again, isn't it? Have they not seen history books?
No, exactly. And I think Hitchens has a few good quotes about this as well, that, it's the most toxic alliance. And that I think he said something like the leftists like to look in the mirror, pick their mirror opposites and call it virtue. And this is what we're finding with this alliance. But I mean, history is doomed to repeat itself. And I think the quicker we learn that, the quicker we can, understand how this is going to end.
And do you think the grooming gangs here are a big part of that? What do you make of the feminists here? Their silence, often, not always, but I mean, there've been whenever someone says that, Julie Bindel pops up and says, I was saying it from the beginning, but a lot of feminists were not.
A lot of feminists were not. In fact, I think there was more silence than people speaking out, because when I moved back to this country, after spending a good few years in the Middle East, I came back to hearing about it for the first time. And there were only a couple of people, one of them including Tommy Robinson, that I was hearing actually call a spade a spade. And now, even like being so immersed in the Vogue violence against women and girls sector in London, I've heard such little, even with the inquiry opening up now again. And generally we're always talking about how we're supposed to support BAME women, and I hate that term, but black
I haven't heard that in a while.
I know. I think I don't think we use it anymore. I don't know what the current word is, but it's global majority now.
Oh, don't. Wait, does that mean minorities? What a twisted way to say minorities.
Well, globally they're the majority, Andrew. So how dare you? Only here they're the minority, but globally.
That's a really interesting thing they've done.
I know.
Because they go by a hierarchy by which, the minority is the one that has the most power, right? But they're also admitting that they are the global, which is what we're all saying as well. We're going, but there's 2 billion Muslims. What are you talking about? And they're admitting that and still somehow getting away with claiming it's a minority. Yeah,
exactly. And they're a minority, so they're vulnerable here. And we should acknowledge that in the world, they're the majority. So, there's that due respect that we should give them anyway. But I digress. But basically the point was that we're so fixated on providing a service and support mechanism to the most vulnerable segment of society, and they are viewed to be that. But when it came to something like white working class girls being trafficked, abused, and being raped, then for some reason there was a deafening silence. I actually Googled myself just out of interest to see what kind of PR pieces for institutions and organizations were putting out. And there was absolutely zilch. And this is before the inquiry, this kind of Elon Musk tweet and this reopening of everything. But back then, all I saw was them discussing how Toby Robinson talking about this was fueling class divisions within the feminist industry in the UK, as opposed to any focus on the fact that what had happened to these white girls. So I think when it comes to perpetrators not being white, it suddenly gets very complicated and everyone begins to walk on eggshells because it doesn't maybe fit their narrative.
How does that make you feel?
Disgusting. Absolutely betrayed as somebody who thinks justice should be for everybody and perpetrators should be called out regardless of their skin color. I mean, for people who don't like to bang on about skin color, it seems like skin color is all they see. And, their morality is very selective.
What can we do? I guess apart from, you speak out on your channel, I do, and we try to make more people, I suppose, able to talk about these things without feeling like bigots. What can be done to stop what looks like Iran 2.0 here?
I think we need to get over the fact that, for example, even with the scandal, it was dead silent for years because of fears of the most ridiculous accusations that people would assume they'd get called a racist or an Islamophobe. For stating facts, for actually following the evidence and stating facts. And, I hate these two words, community cohesion. But again, it was all because apparently, Andrew, diversity is our strength. And if you don't toe that line, then there's something seriously wrong with society and we need to confront it. And that would probably be Sadiq Khan, but a lot of politicians' worst nightmares because they've been, banging on about that line for so long. So I think it's high time, and I say this as a British Pakistani myself, that the community come out and they distance themselves from this and they say how disgusted they are. And it's the same way like when the whole sex scandals and abuse within the Catholic Church was discovered, that Catholics themselves, well-meaning Catholics, came out and said, this is a disgrace. We want this investigated and we want the people removed from these positions. We don't stand by this. We don't tolerate it. And I just think that there's been a big deafening silence from community leaders. And I understand that there's a, kind of collective fear and guilt and shame and kind of all of this. But as a society, we really need to stop towing the line of racism and worried about what people are going to say in wider society is because these girls deserve justice. And it's been a long time coming. Some of them are actually on sex offender lists themselves. So they've grown up now into women. They've got kids of their own who go to school, go on school trips, and their mums aren't allowed to go with them because of something that happened 20, 30 years ago that was nothing in the slightest to do with them, their fault at all.
But why are they on the sex offenders list?
Because they were seen to be hanging around with these these Pakistani men, and they were young and they were drinking and putting themselves in high risk sexual positions.
They were like teenagers or something?
Yeah, and younger.
And they get put on the sex offenders?
Yeah.
Because I do remember there was one who was seen, and I think wrongly, as some sort of ringleader who was getting the other girls or something like that. I think she was white and she was like 15, and the police sort of prosecuted her rather than the grooming gangs.
Yeah, it's all upside down because they prosecuted other girls below 15, called them prostitutes, and saying they enjoy brown men and they enjoy indulging in risky sexual behavior. And one of the dads was actually forbidden from leaving his house to go and find his daughter.
What? Why?
Yeah. Because we don't want to disrupt community cohesion in Bradford and Rotherham and Telford and all these other places.
Is it too late? Are we just completely... I mean, the grooming gangs is one aspect. Another, I suppose, is the increasing ability for the Muslim community or the Islamist part of that to be able to vote in blocks and change our laws. Is that going to happen?
I mean, it's scary what's happening in terms of the Labour Party stopped being good enough for them when, they suddenly changed, or they went a little bit quiet on the Gaza situation, and it wasn't good enough for the Muslims. And so suddenly they splintered off and became independents, and they ran solely based on preaching about Gaza. Nothing to do with the area that they were running for or how to better this country, but purely they were relying on the Gaza vote. And we're seeing more and more of them splinter off. And then the rhetoric that they're using is becoming increasingly dangerous. You've got these independent MPs standing there and saying like why the UK deserves, why they deserve to be here, and how their ancestors helped rebuild Britain, like really warped sense of history, how their ancestors helped rebuild Britain, and now it's their turn to take over, and it's the Muslim turn to take over. Some of them outright say we are here to enforce Sharia, like that's our goal, unapologetically. And I think we need to really clamp down as a nation if we're allowing that kind of rhetoric to be spoken about so freely, and have these people. We've got people like Naz Shah as well, who stands up in Parliament and says that her tweeting that these white girls who are abused should shut their mouths for the sake of diversity now, because it's all come back into light, was an accident. But still, kind of throwing all Pakistanis into one group is not doing any good for the society. So even now, when she's backed into a corner, she dares to call that an accident and still say, oh, but we shouldn't tarnish one group of people. And their defense is always that, oh, but there's also white perpetrators. It's the most baseline argument. We live in a white majority country.
Yeah. They don't understand pro rata.
They really don't. And disproportionality.
So that was Naz Shah, and she actually tweeted something like these white girls better shut their mouth for the sake of diversity.
Yeah. It was, and I thank goodness people at Screen and the internet never forgets, right? She tried to, but the internet never forgets.
It's amazing that the word diversity. It's so funny. You look back at every regime. I always think about the Bolsheviks or the Stasi, or whatever. They've always got these little weird words that sound quite fuzzy and friendly, and things like the global majority. Oh, that's nice. What's that? And diversity. Well, that's our strength, isn't it? That's lovely. And I just imagine a historian in 50 to 100 years. And I don't want to sound like one of those like history's going to look bad, like you're going to look bad in history or whatever, because I think there's an arrogance, I guess, to presuming how the future is going to look back at you. But I do like to imagine at least future historians or people in school learning about it, and it was this regime that welcomed a force that wanted to destroy it. It was a weird thing that happened in 2020 or whatever, and they had the global majority, and they were saying diversity is our strength and all of those things.
Well, it's another thing that I think, again, Hitchens, I refer to him a lot, but he actually commented along those lines, and he said, beware of irrationality no matter how seductive. And this is what they do. Like, if you look at these kind of like Marxists and all of this, as you said, terminology, they really play on words. It's actually like the power of language that they utilize to their advantage, and it's almost like part of their propaganda tactics. That's
really interesting, actually. I didn't know that quote, and that's an interesting thing to think about, that irrationality is seductive. It actually is.
Yeah.
And you see the beliefs that people have, and it just feels good to believe in them. It must be some sort of evolutionary trait, like it makes it feel good. And I studied English literature at university, and you're basically taught the whole time to come up with reasons that aren't true, as to why the author may have written something.
Yeah.
So, there's a red apple, and the reason is because the apple is a communist, and it's something like that. And the author would then say, well, why are they teaching that at the university? I just wrote it because I happened to be holding a red apple when I wrote it. So you're supposed to find untruths. That is the idea. And it is fun. it's like an exciting thing to do. And I used to try and think of the maddest stuff when I was writing my essays. Like, what is the maddest thing the author might have actually meant? So it is
that my teacher will accept.
Yeah, and not just accept, they'll praise it, because if you're utterly mad and you can hold it together, they like that. And I think that's a shame that people are. I mean, it's nice that they're taught that, because it's a really interesting practice and way to learn how to write and think but I don't think they're also told, but remember, like, just because you wrote this irrational belief, it doesn't mean it's actually true.
Yeah, and how dangerous it can be in the long run. Like, obviously, that's what Hitchens was hinting at, that, like, yeah, it might be seductive, but at the end of the day, it's going to subordinate you at some level, or you're going to have to pay the price with, your own soul, so to speak. But again, we just back to the Iran point, for example, when the revolution was kicking off, like in 1979, in the 70s itself, the darling of this identity-obsessed left, Michel Foucault, he actually called the Ayatollah's regime like a spiritual revolution, and he actually called it political spirituality. And obviously the left buys that and backs it, despite it turning into the theocratic, horrible, brutalist state that we see today.
It's mad that no matter how many times history repeats itself, people just can't seem to see it. Or there's a large enough group of people who, it's almost like they are doing that English literature practice. They're looking at Iran and looking and they're going, how can we make the most irrational belief true? And that's what Foucault was all about, wasn't it? And I mean, Foucault also believed in adult-child relations, I believe.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because there was no real truth to him. Exact truth.
So why not?
Exactly. Yeah.
Anything.
And power dynamics, he loved that. So.
What are some of the things, is it actually true that in Iran, say, you said people, are they executed for dancing, women?
Yeah, so what happened was there was basically that this girl, she was a Kurdish girl, Kurdish Iranian, called Mahsa Amini, and she went to Tehran for the first time in her life as a tourist, just to see her own capital city. And she was wearing hijab, as you're supposed to there. But the only issue was that she showed 2 strands of her hair. Like, literally, if I was wearing hijab and just this front was showing, it just wasn't good enough for the morality police.
Oh my God.
And they told her off. And obviously, because of how severe they are in the ways that they treat women, they ended up beating her black and blue until she died. And what that did was that sparked like a nationwide uprising, because this has been like decades long policing of women's bodies and telling them what to wear, and a very like Islamicized version of how they should be. And on the back of that, women started removing their hijabs and kind of coming out onto the streets and recording themselves dancing. And the morality police doubled down. And so they would like beat and execute and torture women who were seen to be dancing, who took their headscarves off, who were recording themselves and putting them on social media. And then you had the kind of White Wednesday movement that started on the back of that as well.
What's that?
That was essentially a movement started by a lady called Masih Alinejad. And she was the voice of the voiceless for Iranian women, basically, who were stuck back in Iran. And it was on Wednesday, you were to wear white, or you were to take off your hijab or wear a white hijab. But it was like a subtle yet defiant protest, and a lot of women would put a little pole and their white hijab on that and kind of wave it around and record themselves and send it to her. So it became a social media protest against the Islamic regime and the morality police, and it was kind of their way of rebelling, and it just spread like wildfire.
That's a really beautiful image. You can imagine again the film of that, like 10 years later they make a film of that and they show people in Britain taking to the streets, leftists, and not supporting those people, but supporting the Ayatollah.
Yeah, exactly. And where are the Western feminists when it comes to that? Apparently, no. They'd rather choose the Ayatollah as opposed to these women. I mean, listen to the women of Iran. What are they saying? They're actually saying we want to break these shackles of the Islamist regime. They don't speak for us. They don't represent us. But apparently, again, that doesn't fit their narrative. And so they'd rather side with people like the Ayatollah in that regime.
Who is this Ayatollah guy? Is Ayatollah is like a role, isn't it? And so if he dies, another one becomes Ayatollah.
Yeah, I come from a Sunni background, so all of this is also very like interesting and weird to me because we have a huge Sunni and Shia divide. So even as a Muslim, everything the Shias do, you think, oh, that's weird, and everything we do, they think that's weird. And there's like this unspoken hatred. Oh, God. Yeah. So when I realized what the Ayatollah concept was, it's kind of like he's the man, the leader in waiting until they're waiting for the return of their hidden imam. Right. So there's a Shia imam that will return towards the end of days, basically. And this imam currently is, I mean, in the Western sense, it's kind of like the divine right to rule. But in a Shia Islamic sense, and he has that divine authority. There's a terminology for it in Islam as well called like Waliyat-e something, where he's like the jurist of Islam.
Right.
So yeah, essentially he's God's authority on earth at the moment. And in a perfect state, he should be expanding that role beyond Iran.
I see. And what's his name? He's, what is it? That guy? The
Ayatollah Amini.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't want to say that name because I'd just get it wrong. What do we know about him? Do we know much about him?
I honestly don't know much except for the fact that he was exiled. He was no, he wasn't. He was actually properly exiled, I think, to France. And that's when the leftists thought, let's use him to prop up this revolution. Little did they know that would, kind of shoot them in the foot. But they kind of brought him back in order to spark this revolution against the Shah. And there we have it. But they're always lying in wait, these Ayatollahs. There is a process that they're chosen, kind of like how the Dalai Lamas go through their process as well. As you said, if one dies, there will be a whole kind of replacement and the next one will come. But I don't know much about why he was exiled before or what he was up to before that.
It's interesting. So he's like the same guy from the overthrowing.
Yes, yeah.
He's still him. So he would have been the one who put the fatwa out on Salman Rushdie.
No, that's another one. There's Khomeinai's and Khomeinis.
Oh, for God's sake. So who's he?
That's I think, I don't know if that's it passes down as a familial thing, but is another Ayatollah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that put the fatwa on Rushdie, yeah.
People are going to be commenting, Andrew, why do you do this podcast? You don't know anything. But that's why I interview other people.
I'm not Iranian either. And I did not even focus on like Iranian history until the Mahsa Amini thing. That's kind of what shook me up. And I thought, well, what's going on in Iran? And it got me by surprise because, like, for example, countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, it just seems like they're kind of willing... They're willing subjects to Islam, if you will, to some degree. But in Iran, the case seems so different, especially from a woman's perspective. I was like, every Iranian that I've met, they openly say, we're not Arabs, we hate Islam. Islam is not our religion. And I was like, wow, like, what is this bravery? Where do you guys get this from? And then I realized, wow, you have to go through a regime like dealing with the Ayatollahs to come to that conclusion. Maybe if Pakistan had the full brunt of Sharia law put on it, Pakistanis would rise up in the same way.
You'd hope so.
You'd hope so, yeah. But then you've got Afghanistan where the majority of them still prefer Taliban rule. And granted, a lot of the country is very rural and they're quite conservative and uneducated. So they naturally just go for what they think is their source of redemption, i.e. the Taliban. But in Iran, you actually see them saying, this is not my religion, this is not my regime.
That's so interesting, a sort of urban compared to a rural country with Islam in it. That's really interesting. And
also the fact that I think you really need to get a taste of real Sharia to want to overthrow it.
It'll be too late by that time over here, won't it?
Let's overthrow it before that.
I saw someone saying that they should make Iran, it should be called Persia, and it would be like a marketing PR thing. Like if they sort of overthrew this Ayatollah fella and it was modernized, they should change it to the name Persia. And it's sort of, I think people think of like Persian cats and things. It seems like all the carpets and it's nice.
Yeah, I think that's the Iranian dream that they want to go back to. Again, they just want to distance themselves and kind of relive and like re-step into their past before Islam did what it's done to their country. And part and parcel of that is claiming back Persia and their Persian ancestry. And with that comes Zoroastrianism and other kind of things that are not Islamic and not kind of Arab colonial. But so, yeah, it's just kind of reclaiming what was theirs always. And I think they enjoy that correlation that you're talking about to Persian rugs and Persian cats and
Yeah.
everything Persian is nice.
No more Ayatollahs.
Yes.
So tell me, last time you were on, you told me about your backstory. But that was some time ago now. Well, not just your backstory, but the episode itself was some time ago. So for those, there's a lot of new viewers since then. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing.
And so I am a third generation British Pakistani. Grew up in London and was pretty damn religious as I was growing up here. So I wore hijab at 9 years old, as one good Muslim girl does. And mosque was just important at school. And yeah, my granddad was the imam of our local mosque. And so it was obviously, I was quite close to him and started memorizing the Quran and, really kind of taking religion on, flaunting it, if you will. And then life changed completely because we moved to the house of the Islamic God, Allah, in Saudi Arabia. And I lived like 40 minutes away from Mecca. So we'd go and do pilgrimages a lot. And you think you're so lucky because you're blessed to be living in, so close to the house of God. How many other Muslims get this opportunity? And that's where I got a glimpse of the real deal, like Wahhabi Islam. I know Saudi Arabia's changed a lot now. But when I was there in the noughties, there was still the Islamic police, the Mutawa. There was still kind of beheadings and amputations after Friday prayers. There was still a heavy gender apartheid outside of our schools because I went to a very international school, living in a very international compound. But outside those four walls, it is like proper Sharia. So my upbringing kind of was seeing that and then coming back to England every few months for holidays and kind of living between those two worlds. So yeah, just trying to understand my faith between those two things, really.
And when did you start to move away from that?
We moved to Dubai after Saudi Arabia and I thought, oh, this is nice. This is like a Islam light. Like I hear the call to prayer. We get all the holidays, but I can drive. I can go out with boys. I can go to the cinema. Cinema exists. In Saudi Arabia, you had to drive across the border to Bahrain just to go to the cinema.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's no cinema in Saudi Arabia?
Not when I was there, no.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, and people would be making moonshine in their houses and, everything was just an ordeal. And yeah, it was like doing a drug deal to go watch a movie or get a pirated copy.
Bloody hell. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're in Dubai and yeah.
So in Dubai, everything seemed like, oh, this is an Islam I can get behind. They've got one step in the modern kind of Western world. This is like a taste of how London life would be. But also we hold on to our Islamic religiousness. And that's kind of when I was getting more and more, I was introduced to so many people from different backgrounds and I heard of religions that I'd never heard of before, like the Druze religion, a lot of, from people from Lebanon. And I was like, that's cool. They get the best of both worlds, Islam and Christianity. I came across a lot of Shia friends as well and realized how much they were persecuted by Sunnis. And so there was a lot of kind of mentally, kind of groundbreaking stuff I was absorbing as a young teenager and kind of, internalizing myself as what do I stand for, what do I not. But then coming back to the UK again, I was exposed to British values and you think to yourself, oh, okay, I've got some gay friends and I've got this, but actually I'm supposed to hate you. My religion tells me to hate Christians. It tells me to hate Jews. But here we are all coexisting perfectly. We like each other. I don't want these people to burn in eternity in hell. So all of those things were happening on an internal level. But it wasn't until a life experience happened to me when I had gone back to Dubai as an adult and got married that made me kind of really just snap out of the faith.
This was an arranged marriage?
It was not an arranged marriage, but it was you have to get married situation because we can't leave you unmarried. An unmarried Muslim girl is a liability in our culture. You can't have fun until you're married. You can't travel. So it's actually like your path to freedom, essentially, yeah.
And what happened when you married this man?
Well, very quickly the marriage fell apart. I had no idea. I had grown up in thankfully quite a healthy, well, as far as I know, a healthy environment in terms of it wasn't abusive or anything. But then living with him, I was experiencing things I'd never experienced before to the point where I was becoming like a shell of myself as a person. I was very outgoing and I started, watching TED Talks about why do I feel depressed and things like that. And then I think one day he said something to me and I actually Googled it thinking, is that normal for someone to say to another person, especially if you're, your intimate partner? And the Google page came out with 10 signs you're being emotionally abused. And that was the first time I'd heard those words. And then I realized, oh my God, like, no, he's controlling the money as well. He's not letting me work. All of these things that are kind of keeping me stuck in this position where I feel like shit basically every day. And
what had he said to you?
Pardon?
What had he said to you?
I went through EMDR therapy and I've actually forgotten what that line itself was. But I remember thinking, I wouldn't say that to my worst enemy. Is that normal? It's actually even hard for me to retell it now because it's like a different lifetime. It's EMDR like wipes these memories from your brain. That's why I can kind of like smile about it now as I talk. Before I just used to like tears would just drop nonstop. But yeah, I think, and again, that's kind of propelled me to do the work that I'm doing now is because I didn't even know these things existed. I didn't know the word gaslighting. I didn't know what stonewalling was. I didn't know what breadcrumbing was. I didn't know all of these kind of psychological abuse manipulation tactics. Essentially, long story short, when I found out and I tried to leave, the control extended to how dare you try and divorce me? Like, there's no way you're leaving this situation. You're mine forever. And in order to do that, he found a lawyer that put this really, really ancient Sharia law on me, which relates directly back to a Quran verse about the disobedience of a wife, which is called nushuz in Arabic. And the Quran verse is like, if you fear disobedience, it's from the same verse about the wife beating 434. If you fear disobedience, they've extended it in Sharia law. So in the Quran, you can beat them, admonish them. In the law, you can do other things to return you forcibly back to the house because you're a disobedient wife and your husband doesn't want to let you go and you can't leave without his permission. So to my British trained mind, because I'd gone to uni and studied law, I was like, that's kidnap.
Yeah.
That no judge would allow that, no law, no court, nobody's going, this is ridiculous. Except Dubai operates Sharia law and judges do consider that. So I thought we were going to have play it out like it would in any normal country where one of them wants divorce, one doesn't, but it plays out in court and you state your reasons. But no, we had to go through Islamic counseling where he said that there were demons in me and I was possessed and that's why I wanted a divorce. It wasn't me talking. So I was encouraged to pray 5 times a day and do all of these Islamic things to get closer with God and I would change my mind. They had no idea what the word abuse was. And so that fell on deaf ears. And when I realized I thought I was going to trust in the system to get me my freedom and what I'm owed, I thought, no, actually this system is rigged against you. It's rigged against women because it just upholds these absurd Islamic teachings. And if you've got a kind of nefarious lawyer and you've got a husband that doesn't want to let you go, they can team up to make your life hell. So I got out at the last minute by the skin of my teeth by calling the British emergency number for Dubai, for British expats in Dubai. And bless him, the gentleman on the phone just said, get out of there, do not give them your passport, because things had heated up so much that they were asking for me to hand my passport over and essentially put a travel ban on me. And I just legged it to the airport, packed a quick bag and legged it and never looked back.
Bloody hell. So are you technically still married to him?
No, so thankfully months later, I got my own lawyer there and she went through the courts when I was here safely and eventually she got the divorce statement because I wanted to see that beautiful D word on a piece of paper no matter how long it would have taken. But it's funny you asked that because in the grand scheme of things, like coming back to the UK, it was just an Islamic marriage. So it didn't really mean anything in terms of my life moving forward. And I work with a lot of clients who are so adamant that they need the Islamic talaq and they don't get it for years because that's how Islam is designed, that only a man unilaterally has the right to divorce. And I looked at the Sharia Council in London's website the other day, and the first thing that came up was, we are no longer accepting khullas, which is the woman's court application for divorce, because we have a backlog. And so imagine relying on the Sharia Council here, that a lot of Muslim families do as a woman. You're not going to get anything for potentially years. And I always tell them, don't even wait for that. Just break away and just, live your life, because that is post-separation control, or that is control even within kind of, just delaying your freedoms essentially. And women stay in that limbo for so long.
They have that in like Haredi or Orthodox Judaism as well. It's called a get. You have to get a get.
Yes, yeah, so, very similar.
Yeah.
Actually, when I look at Islam now, I was watching My Orthodox Life on Netflix.
Oh, Julia.
Yeah, and I was like, I understand where Islam got so many of its things from.
Yes,
you know, as Judaism being the predecessor to that.
There's so much similar stuff. I mean, even
Absolutely.
halal and kosher meat.
Yeah,
which I would ban both of them.
Yeah.
I keep talking about it. I don't know why. I started talking about it a few weeks ago. Now every episode I'm like, and also kosher and halal meat, because I love animals and I just
for sure. And it's high time as a society we just say that we respect animal welfare. And people in Muslim MPs in Parliament are standing up, trying to say their religion gives them exemptions from it, but again, we need to have that monolith of a culture and say not here.
Yeah, you know what's sad? I asked Richard Dawkins about this, and I said, do you think animals can suffer in the same way as humans? And he said it's quite possible they suffer more in a different way, because they don't necessarily sit there and wonder things the way we would do, and like, oh, why has my life gone this way, or things like that. But they need to be able to suffer to be able to survive in the wild, because it's sort of a warning system. If you suffer, you'll be able to escape better, and you'll have a warning. Oh, this is hurting me. I better get the hell away from here.
Survival instinct. Yeah.
So the suffering we put them through is just, it's not very nice. Islam in general, you've critiqued many aspects of the Quran. What are some verses or teachings that you think or progressives in particular, are not aware of?
Well, I think now that Islam has become so readily, like the sources have become so readily available online, I think more are they aware of them, but they choose to ignore them because it doesn't fit the narrative of Islam is a religion of peace, or this was only meant for wartime, and they try and contextualize it and say this doesn't apply anymore. But I mean, the Quran itself, if you want to take like the violence as one section, the complete vitriol towards disbelievers, for example, like the verses to strike them at their necks, to amputate the opposite hands and from their feet if they spread corruption in the land, that they're the worst of creatures, that kill the infidels wherever you find them. Even Muslims themselves say that verses like that abrogate the peacetime verses, because where a lot of these progressives like to quote, oh, Islam says there's no compulsion in religion. That's the hot favorite. But that was a Meccan verse when Muhammad was all calm and lovey-dovey, rainbows and unicorns in Mecca, when he didn't have the power and he didn't have the manpower and the armies behind him. That soon changed when he got to Medina and they had done the Hijra, the migration. That's where the Islamic calendar begins from. Because from that migration onwards, Islam changed its nature forever. And so you've got these things where it says strike them at their fingertips or cast terror into their hearts. ISIS and terrorist organizations use those scriptures directly to get influence. There's videos of them striking, hostages of theirs at their fingertips. There's videos of them beheading because the Quran says strike them at their necks. And I think the proliferation of terrorism that can be found directly in the Quran is something that progressives just love to turn a blind eye to. And then the sheer misogyny. And this is why I like to always bring it back to the grooming gangs, because we need to talk about the religious motivation behind it. The fact that there's verses in the Quran, as I mentioned, the one about beating your wife or fearing disobedience. But there's other verses that go on to say, there's many that subjugate Muslim women, but non-Muslim women specifically, when there's it says, tell your women, O believing men, to bring down their cloth over their bosoms or whatever to ensure their modesty and guard their modesty. And the line goes, so that they will not be harassed or molested. So that's like a delineation that Muslim women should cover, and the non-Muslim women that aren't covered are not free from male sexual violence. And that's where the issue comes from. And that's why when you hear the rhetoric of some of these groomers in the grooming gangs and the perpetrators, they say things like, sorry to say this, it's horrible, but they say things like, this is what white girls are for, and our girls are for marriage, but this is what white girls are for. And this is religiously justified because you act like this. You are not virgins. You drink. You wear these kind of clothes. So that modesty really kind of even to this day goes into their psyche as something that they act on a daily basis. And there's so much more. There's just telling women that they're dumb, they get less inheritance, they need double the witnesses of men. There's no there's no limit, like there's no lower limit on child marriage. So
that's in the Quran, isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Because I'm of the understanding Muhammad had a 9-year-old wife, did he?
Yeah, a child bride. He married her at 6 and consummated the marriage, sexually violated her at 9. So in the Quran it says, it's talking about marriage in a verse, and it says, for those of your wives who have menstruated and those who are premenstrual, da 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 da. So there's no limit, there's no lower limit on, they're talking about little girls who haven't even hit like puberty yet. And
Yes.
what do you see happening in Afghanistan under the Taliban? They marry girls as young as 5, 6.
That is mental.
Yeah,
It's just horrific. I suppose, I mean, some people say, oh, well, those are the bad Muslims. Those are the ones who are not reading the Quran the right way or something. What would you say to those people?
I'll say they're reading the Quran in the most literal form, in the most literal sense possible. There's nice, like, you can try and find other sources of Islam to try and negate what you find in the Quran. But if you get a lot of people who call themselves Quranists, and they say we reject all the hadith because that's just a long telephone game, and you know we don't know who's a liar and who's not, so how can we believe that? Even though, then how do you know to pray 5 times a day? Basic things of Islam fall apart if you only rely on the Quran. But you can find 3 prayers in the Quran at max.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
But these Quranists like to say, oh, we're so much better than, we don't follow all the bad malpractice in the hadith. But the Quran itself, as I said to you, you've got the calls to terror, you've got the misogyny, you've still got the wife beating, and you've got the child marriage that's still very problematic. I'd say they are terrorists. They're not inspired by it. They are following it down to a T.
It's a funny thing that, because I feel a little bit like that about the Bible and the Torah or whatever, like all the religious things, because you always hear modern progressives or whoever, they always seem to say, oh yeah, but they're just not good Christians, or they're not good Jews, they don't read the thing. And I sort of feel like how you just explained about the Quran. Yes, they are. You are supposed to stone an adulterer in a park or whatever, or if you go past, you're supposed to throw rocks at them. You are supposed to do all these things, and I sort of feel like either do it or don't.
Yeah, it's always the no true Scotsman with them. Always.
Yeah. You can't just sort of go, oh, I believe in this thing. Why? Oh, because the book says it. Well, then do what the book says. Because if I believed even a bit of what the book says, I'm doing all the book.
Yeah, exactly. That was little Nuriyah trying to do that. And you either chuck it all away or you go by the book.
How was that, trying to go by the book?
It was pretty depressing as a lifestyle, to be honest.
What's it like in the hijab?
God, it really is like you feel a disconnect from everybody else in some weird way. And for me, the reason why I was so okay with taking it off, because I did it very young, was because I thought this cloth that I've got here that's making me feel all weird, and I don't get to feel the breeze in my hair and little things like that. It actually has not changed the way I feel in my heart. Like, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't, all it is like, oh, when I walk around, people are going to know, oh, she's a Muslim girl. And like, that's what I want. Like, people know. And this is why I think here in the UK, we have such a problem with 2nd, 3rd generation British immigrants, like from like countries like Pakistan, like I came from, that they have an identity crisis and they're really kind of regressing instead of kind of becoming more and more British as we go, because you really try and hold on to something. And if like in a country like Pakistan, Islam is propped up as the one main, bit of your identity, then that's what you kind of really try and show off. But it does make you the other. And it does come with its own host of problems. And I think compared to other Western countries, well, especially compared to America, the Muslim population here is a lot more extreme in their thinking than they are in places like the States. And you think, what's the difference in the immigration experience that British Muslims are so extra?
Yeah, well, I guess I thought part of that is that we have so much of it. And so you're able to have these silos. Whereas in the States, it's such a big country that when Muslims go there, they're sort of often probably the only Muslim on the street and those kinds of things. And it's only in the next few years we'll start to see those kinds of silos like we have here.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Like, it's obviously the geographical vastness of America makes it, You
have to adapt.
You have to adapt. And like you said, having said that, when they do get in enough kind of power of numbers, in Dearborn, Michigan, I think it was, they tried to make the first Muslim-only city with Sharia and everything halal, and and there was a lot of pushback. But as soon as they get enough in numbers, that's what happens. But I thought the same as you, and that's why I really kind of think a little bit of the Danish model of, you know, forced kind of integration and living situations to move us away from these ghettoized Bradfords and Rochdales of the UK would really like benefit.
Oh, yeah, imagine that. It would all be so much easier and simpler, and you'd have a large Muslim population of people who adapt in the same way as Jews and most Hindus and Sikhs and things, and it wouldn't be this issue we have. There'd be other issues around immigration, which we have, but not that. Yeah. Are you at all optimistic for the future or very pessimistic?
Naturally, I like to be an optimist. I consider myself an optimist, but I'm also a realist. And I think that just the next 3-4 years are going to be crucial. And I think we need to, because you hear civil war floating around, you know, and I hear like top commentators in the UK kind of dropping those two words that I didn't think that I would hear in my lifetime. But and then you see incidents like Southport, and you see like just how much push we needed the richest man in the world, for God's sake, to tweet about the grooming gangs for us to take a good hard look at ourselves. Yeah. I mean, it's sad that it had to get to that point. You know, we've had absolute outcasts that the media has shunned for years, like Tommy Robinson, speak the truth that's only coming to light now. And he was kind of branded as being an absolute racist, you know, racial kind of hatred stirrer, when all along he was correct in saying there are these rape gangs that exist. So I think, there needs to be kind of some political accountability, and I think the will of the people needs to be taken into account and listened to. Otherwise, we're going to have some... I'm thinking about maybe, you know, getting a plan B to leave this country if it all kicks off. I know, where do you go? Exactly. All the Muslim world is off limits to me.
Yeah.
I can't even go to like...
now. That really is. I mean, what, South America for now? For the next few years?
Sounds like a good bet.
Yeah, just about be okay for the next 10 years and then won't be anymore.
Yeah, South America's a bit untouched by Islam.
But there's still, you know, there are mosques there. There still are growing numbers of Muslims there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it in Buenos Aires is sort of my home from home, my in-laws are from. And yeah, friends keep me updated, and they say it's not quite London yet, but it's even Buenos Aires is starting to get a bit of this stuff. It's funny because you see them sort of almost, you know, 30 years behind us with this. So a lot of the Argentinian people I know are very much on the kind of progressive feeling of like, it's great, a bit of diversity. And it's like, yeah, let's see how you are in a couple of decades.
Yeah, exactly. I guess we just got to keep running around the world, and just every time it's about to come there, you move. But no, it's tough.
South Pole. There's not many prominent ex-Muslim speakers, really. I mean, because there's like Yasmin Mohammed. There's this candid one, and I don't want to say her name because she's gotten off YouTube, and I sort of don't want to go further into her name or anything like that.
And she's not ex-Muslim, just so people don't.
Oh, she's not?
No. She's very much a Muslim.
Oh, she is still a Muslim?
Yeah.
Oh, right, I see what you mean. I thought you meant like she wasn't from that background at all.
Oh, yeah, no, she is, but she's a Muslim.
But she's called out things from within Islam.
Exactly, yeah. And you would think she'd have more leeway in doing that because she's from within. Like by saying I'm an ex-Muslim, I'm saying, oh, the rot runs really deep and it's Islam is the problem itself. And so they're like, oh, screw you, you've left the faith, you traitor, you this, you that. But I can sleep peacefully because I'm like, that Islam is a problem too. I think somebody like her would have had more legroom to criticize them and say, hey, let's introspect because I'm still in the faith and these are the problems within our community, and they would listen. But no, they turned on her massively.
I'm trying to think of any male ones. Is Ben Habib, was he Muslim?
No, he's
Pakistani.
He's not. He's Christian, I think he is. Yeah, he's quite a proud Christian, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe he was initially.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, he says all the right things about Islam, so he knows what's up.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, you just don't get enough of it. I think that's something that needs to change. But that's also why I admire you so much, because it took a lot of strength to do what you do, and just the fact that it's so rare. I mean, that shows that, you know, if nothing else does, the fact that it's so rare to find people like you. So I appreciate that very much. Where can people find, I've got another question, but where can people find your YouTube channel and things like that?
So yeah, I'm on YouTube under Holy Humanist, but you can also just put Nuriyah Khan and it should come up. And on X, I think it's at Nuriyah K. Yeah, I think it's that. And then on Instagram as well now, I've just opened up my Instagram, but it's nothing activism related. It's just my Epicurean adventures.
Oh, what does Epicurean mean?
I guess someone just enjoys the finer things in life.
Oh.
Good food, good wine, good views.
Well, there you go. Yeah. People should follow that one. I
Absolutely,
think.
because a lot of people kind of box you in that, like, oh, all you do all day is talk about Islam. It's like, no, actually, I have a very lovely life. So
See, that's the opposite of an oppressive religion, though, isn't it? You're going out there and enjoying yourself and being an independent person.
Exactly, yeah. And then trying to make your whole personality is like, oh, it's like someone who just hung up on their ex and all you ever do is talk about Islam. And it's like, well, if Islam didn't hold this death penalty over us, nobody would care. But also, no, I actually have a very lovely time when I'm not talking about Islam.
Good. I don't remember who said last time, but who's a heretic you admire?
Last time I actually said Ricky Gervais, and that still stands. Last time I requested that he do a joke on Islam. I'm still waiting for him to break into that and do a joke on Islam.
Has he never done one?
No, not one that's like really kind of gonna, rock the boat.
He's done ones about immigrants.
Yes.
And sort of all the men coming over. He's like, a lot of men, all the guys, all the boys coming over.
Yeah.
He's done that, but maybe
no
not.
one's safe. I mean, he's roasted every segment of society, but he hasn't gone hard on Islam like the way he's read from the Bible and stuff, which is fair enough. Maybe he's name dropped terrorism here or there.
You might say some of that about Louis Theroux.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm waiting for. He's sort of done everyone.
Yeah.
But that. But then these are men who are, I mean, I don't know, Louis must be in his 50s, Gervais 60 odd.
Yeah.
And you just go, I'm just tired and I don't need this.
Exactly. Come on. Why? You live a nice life. Why would you ask for that?
Yeah.
But I think besides him, I've quoted him so much in this podcast, and honestly, like without watching Hitchens and Hitch slaps for months at a time on YouTube, the man, besides his intellectual, like just absolute ability to smash anyone with his words, it was the way he kind of showed me that actually the whole point of free speech is to take down bad ideas. And the way that I saw him as probably one of the first non-Muslims to be like, Islam makes very grand claims for itself. And I was like, he's right, it does.
I like that stuck with you. Islam makes very grand claims.
Yeah, it's the final, it's the eternal. And I was like, he's so right. Like, that's a big thing to say. Yeah. And, extraordinary claims and all that. So he really kind of gave me the intellectual courage and moral courage to leave Islam. So I would like to pay my respects to him as my heretic this time.
Imagine if you went to see him, like many must have done, and he's your hero, and then you sort of put your hand up and you said something, and then he mocked you, just horribly. That'd be the worst thing ever. I
would low-key die. I know. Gosh.
I wouldn't want to meet, don't meet your heroes kind of thing. If he were
they do say that, yeah.
Yeah, if he were living today, I wouldn't want to. And to be honest, his brother Peter, you don't want to be on the wrong side of a hitch slap from him either.
No, you really don't. Has he been on here?
No, we've spoken about it, and maybe at some point, but I've always been very nervous about just having him here. Yeah. What if he shouts at me like he did? You see with Alex O'Connor?
Yes.
Bloody hell.
Oh my goodness, about the legalization, wasn't it?
They talked too long about drugs, I
think. They did.
And I just, if I was Alex, bloody hell. But he's strong, Alex, and he just, he
can
just
hold
gets
his
on
own,
with,
yeah.
Whereas I would have just been in tears, floods of tears. Like, okay,
no,
I'm sorry.
Andrew, I've seen you hold your own.
No,
you're under pressure, you are better than you think.
Please go follow Nuriyah. She's amazing. We'll have a few links down below. Just come on, just go and give her those follows and things like that. Hit that like button, subscribe, and keep watching this channel. Remember, check out my sponsor, Fume, by going to tryfume.com/heretics and using the code heretics.